Hello, 70s receiving students and teachers.
Hello, Mr. Dumo.
Thank you. You can take your seat. Receiving students and 70s, in our previous lesson, we were looking at some of the objects, and we were to measure the circumference and also the diameter of those objects. 70s and receiving students, what were those objects that we were measuring? What type of objects? There were two types of objects we were measuring. What are they? Isaac, can you tell the class the two types of objects that we were measuring in our previous lesson? Receiving students, you can tell your receiving teacher.
Cylinder and milk tin lid.
Okay, very good. He says cylinder and tin lid. Okay, any more answers? Yes, there were two objects. He was correct by saying cylinder. What about this tin lid? What name do we give to this tin lid? Is it a cylinder or cylindrical shape? No. It is a circular shape. Thank you. So, in our previous lesson, we were measuring the circumference of a circular and a cylindrical object, like the two objects that I'm holding in front of me. And also, we also measured the diameter of these two objects as well. And I believe I've asked you in the previous lesson to keep the table which you have collected the data for these two objects, the circumference and diameter. If you have them with you, that's good. We are going to use it in this lesson. Now, 70s and receiving students, as I've said earlier on, in front of me, I've got some objects which I used in the previous lesson. The first two objects were the lid of tin and also the can that I used. Okay? And then I believe some of you might have used other objects like a cup and a coin, or 1 kina coin. Okay? A cup and a 1 kina coin. 1 kina coin is known as what object? A circular object, and a cup is known as a cylindrical object. Very good. Now, on the screen I have the table which will show you the results of what you have collected in the previous lesson. And I did ask you to write your answers down under each column where the circumference and also the diameter. And I believe you should have such example like on the screen in your exercise books or student workbook. Check to see if you have the table nicely filled out. If you have done that, then we are going to use that to go on to today's lesson. Seventies and receiving students, our today's lesson topic will be on identifying pi. Again, our today's lesson topic will be on identifying pi. By the way, 70s and receiving students, do you know what pi is? No, I think so. Okay, to help you find out what pi is or how we can find pi, we are going to do some exercises to find out about pi. Now, on the screen, I have a table which was from the previous lesson table. And this time, this table has included a new column. And that column has two letters. The numerator, as you can see, is the C, letter C, and the denominator is D. And you might be wondering, What is C standing for? Can somebody tell us, 70s and receiving students, what is the C in that column standing for? Let us see. Evelyn, what do you think?
Circumference.
Circumference, very good. The letter C is standing for circumference on the table. Now, letter D is for diameter, very good. So, in the first column, it says objects. It is for the cylindrical and circular objects which you have brought with you to measure. For example, the tin lid and the can. But for the other columns, the C stands for circumference, D stands for diameter. And the last column is the column that will help us to find out what pi is. Or we are going to identify what pi is. So we are going to, in this lesson, we are going to use that information by dividing the circumference by its diameter. So that last column, we are going to be doing something like that. Is that clear, receiving students and 70s? Yes. Okay. Now, this is what we are going to do. 70s and receiving students, on the screen, I have a table. And the table consists of some of the objects that I've done in our previous lesson, like the tin lid and can. For a cup and 1 kina coin, it's just an additional in case some of you might have measured those two things. Okay, sorry, the two objects. Now, the circumference are all been given and the diameter are all been given. What I would like you to do is you are going to divide the circumference with the diameter. For example, the tin lid. You are going to divide the circumference by its diameter, and to do that you are going to use that formula on the last column, C over D. Is that clear? So the circumference, like for example, the tin lid, the circumference is 27.2 centimeter and the diameter is 9.0 centimeter or 9 centimeter. So you are going to divide 27.2 by its diameter, which is 9 centimeter, and you will come up with your answer, and you put your answer under the column where you can see C over D. Is that clear? Okay. Receiving teacher, please, you can group your students. You assign the students to work in their groups. 70s and receiving students, we are going to do this small exercise to help us find out what pi is. We are going to work in our small groups. Now, class, listen carefully to this instruction. All of you, the receiving students and the 70s, you are going to use the table which is on the screen to do your exercise. You are to work in groups to calculate all those answers. Now, you are going to write your answer in 2 decimal places. Your answer must be in 2 decimal places. Okay? Do you know how to write your answer in 2 decimal places? Okay. The number after the decimal place must be 2. There must be 2 numbers. The number after the decimal place, there must be 2 numbers. Is that clear? Receiving students and 70s. Your answer must be in 2 decimal places. With that, 70s and receiving students, I would like you to work in your groups to do this exercise on the screen. You complete the table. You can start now. Okay, it's on the screen. You work in your groups to calculate the answers. To the receiving teacher, please check your students to make sure that they're working in groups and the answers must be in 2 decimal places. Seven is and receiving students, you should be applying the skills on how to divide decimal numbers. I believe you were taught on how to divide decimal numbers, and you should be applying those methods or the steps that you use to divide decimal numbers. Think back to what you have learned in the previous lesson on dividing decimal numbers. 70s and receiving students, I hope you have finished by now. This is what I would like you to do. You write all your answers down in your table, and then you are going to cross-check the answers with the answers that I have on the screen. So receiving teacher, please remind your receiving students to check the answers with the answers that I have on the screen. Class, all sit up straight. You compare your table with the answers on the screen now. '70s and receiving students, have a close look at the answers on the screen now. If you have calculated the answers correctly, you should have the answers like that on the screen. For a thin lead, when you divide the circumference and the diameter, your answer should be in 2 decimal places, which is 3.02. Okay? Your answer should be 3.02. Okay? Is it clear? Okay, for a can, you should have 3.20, and for the cup, you should have 3.13, and the last one, 1 kina coin, your answer should be 3.06. Now, 70s and receiving students, I would like you to have a look at the last column where the answers are. When you look at the answers carefully, you will see that the answers are all written. The first whole number is in a red color. So you look at all those red colors. What is the common number that you can see out of all the answers? 70s and receiving students. 3. Hands up, please. Receiving students, you can tell your teacher, 70s. Have a look at the column, last column carefully. And the red color, you will see that there's a common number with all the answers. Shannon, what do you think? What is common number there?
3.
The common number is
3.
3. 70s and receiving students. When you divided the circumference with the diameters, all the answers on the last column, they all gave the answer with 3 point something all the way. So the common answer that you could see is in the red color, which is 3. 70s and receiving students. So, in order for us to find out what pi is, this is one of the ways that we can identify pi. So, we can say that when identifying pi, or to find out what pi is, we are going to divide the circumference by its diameter. We are going to divide the circumference and diameter in order to identify pi. Now, to the receiving teacher, I have some more information on what is pi and how we can, or why is pi written in that form. Or we will learn more about pi by looking at the information on the screen now. I would like you to copy down the information for the receiving students. 70s and receiving students, by now we are going to look at, after doing the exercise, we are going to find out why or how to identify pi and how it was found to be written as all the answers in 3. So I would like you to sit up straight and have a look at the screen now. Firstly, what do we mean by pi? It says pi is the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. Pi is the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter. Next, pi is given a special name, P and I there, and its symbol as shown there in a yellow color. That symbol is a letter of the Greek alphabet. So the word pi, Pi, is sometimes written as a symbol, which is on the yellow color, and that symbol is a letter of the Greek alphabet. The estimate of pi value is 3.14. 3.14. So when we were dividing the circumference and diameter, our answers were 3 point something, 3 point something. So the value of pi, the estimate value of pi is 3.14. The decimal value of this ratio is referring to the circumference with the diameter, by its diameter. Dividing the circumference by its diameter is known as the ratio. So the decimal value of this ratio is 3.14159265 and continuously. So it has been shortened, and which is written as 3.14, and that is the estimate or approximate value for pi. Okay? Next, the approximations for pi are, in fraction it is written as 22 over 7. The numerator is 22 and the denominator is 7 as a fraction. And as a decimal number, it is written in 2 decimals places. That is 3.14 as a decimal. Again, the approximation or the estimate value for pi, in fraction form it is written 22 over 7. And as a decimal it is written as, in 2 decimal places, 3.14. That's the estimation or approximate. Okay? Next, pi, rather than some of other Greek letter like alpha or omega, was chosen as the letter to represent the number 3.141592 and continuous. Because the letter pi in Greek pronounced like our letter P stands for what? Perimeter. So 70s and receiving students, in our previous lesson, as you can remember, I mentioned that the circumference of a circle is the perimeter of the circle, or it's known as also the perimeter of the circle. Okay? So, that's the reason why the letter P stands for the perimeter. Okay, next, pi, or the symbol there, is a mathematical constant which represents the ratio of any circles, and the constant is occasionally also referred to as the secular constant. So 70s and receiving student, the pi is also known as the secular constant of the circle. So 70s and receiving students, the formula to find pi is written as that symbol pi in Greek is equals to C over D. So by now, 70s and receiving students, in order for you to find pi, you are going to divide the circumference by its diameter. Is that clear? Good. So 70s and receiving students, to find out more about the informations which were on the screen, you can open to your student workbook on page number 20. On page number 20, your notes should be there. So you should be looking at the notes on page number 20. With that, receiving teacher, please, you can refer to the notes again and explain clearly to your students after this lesson. 70s and receiving students, our key phrase for today's lesson is pi. Very good. And our next lesson will be on circumference of a circle. Thank you very much, 70s and receiving students, for your participation in today's lesson. Thank you.